It is June 12th, 2018. I'm here with Mr. Komendera, who plays a big part in theater, local community theater here at Footlight Theater. He's a kind of a big shot. So, what do you want us to call you in this interview? Can we call you Bobby? Yeah, because
Please call me
it's weird.
Bobby.
It's weird for me because I've known you for 8 years now.
Yeah, someone just at this last thing said Mr. Komendera, and I thought, who next, Mr. Komendera?
Yeah.
That was my dad.
Yeah, not you. But you want to tell if you could describe yourself in one sentence, what would that one sentence be, Bobby?
Oh, sentence.
See, I gave you a bit more than just one word.
An easygoing, hopefully sincere person. That's who I am.
I think you're sincere most of the time. I think. Where were you born? What was your childhood like? And tell us a bit about that.
I was born April 15th, 1954 in Poland, in a small little fishing village. I think it's called Gdynia. I was brought over in June of that same year, and then I was adopted by my parents, Walter and Mary Komendera, in 1954, but in August of 1954. I was through the Catholic Service Adoption Agency. I don't know if I'm legally Polish. I don't know if I was born in Poland. I just know that that's where I came from. And I've never done the DNA thing. I've thought about it just to find out if I am 100% Polish or not. But I was raised by Polish people, so I feel like I'm Polish.
See, that's what I'm going to say. I've been raised by Irish Catholic people, so I feel like I'm Irish.
Yeah.
But then I look in the mirror and say, oh, no, I'm not.
But yeah, you live who you're with. I mean, that's what I think is great.
Yep.
And then I grew up in Gary, and went to St. Mark's Grade School and Andrean High School. I only took one course at Purdue University, and that was just vocal. And I just took that because they needed a bass. And my friend was in it, so he wanted me to be in their glee club, so I had to take a course. I worked full-time since I was a sophomore in high school. Worked in the grocery line as a manager for 19 years. Then I went to be an optician in downtown Gary on 6th and Broadway for 29 years. Then I worked, I think I worked 7 years at Dunes Optical, and then I worked up to my disability at Vision Point in LaPorte as an optician. So I really only had 4 employers through my whole life, and only 2 basically different jobs.
Fascinating. Well, as I said earlier, you're a bigwig here at Footlight, and fun fact, you choreographed the first show I saw, ever. And that was here at Footlight.
The first show at Footlight?
Yeah.
No.
My first show at Footlight.
Oh,
you
yes,
choreographed.
yes, your first show that you saw, yes.
Yes.
I'm not that old to be in the first show ever at Footlight.
No.
Close to it.
Close, but maybe year or two, right?
Yeah, just a couple of years, yeah.
Year or two.
Yeah.
But that was the first show I saw, and you choreographed that. So has there been a person here at Footlight or anywhere that got you really involved in theater, like you did to me?
Not really at Footlight. A person that really got me involved in Footlight was a past president, and his name was Ed Helmken. He's passed away now. But I basically became president after his reign. Mm-hmm. And he took me under his wing. We got to know each other really well. I've directed him, he directed me, so he was probably who got me involved with Footlight. Person that got me involved in real life, I don't really know of anybody. The first time I did anything on stage, I was 4 or 5 years old. I went to an audition with my sister, and I just went because my mom didn't want to hire a babysitter, and they asked me to audition, and I got the lead role. My sister did not get in the show. of Rumpelstiltskin. And that was in Gary. And I just did it because it was a fun thing to do. I didn't even know that I was actually acting or on stage. I performed from about 5 years old on. I was in a Polish dance troupe and sang Polish songs. I was in choirs all through schools, grade school and high school. So I was used to performing, but I never was used to theater per se until I was in high school. That's got me more and more involved with theater. And then it was friends. It was basically everyone I've ever done a show with, I still remain friends with. And I mean, they're on my Christmas card list and we still talk. I have friends all the way back from my third or fourth grade that I still keep in touch with. And those were all theater friends. I mean, I met them through theater. So if anything inspired me to stay with theater is just the friendships that you got garnered because of the shows.
Interesting. So your life as a person and things you do older than me, and you've gone through a lot. You've been around the block a few times. So what big things stand out to you, and do you have anything to show us today? Actually, no, I have what you were going to show us.
Well, I also have...
Still have your feature?
Oh yeah, it's in my folder there. But what I have
He has stuff, but we're not just on him.
Right. One of my things that I really am happy about was back in 1971. I think it was 71. Oh yeah, it was 71. I won the Virtuoso Champion of the United States. First I won in Indiana, and then I won in the United States of accordion. And so I was really proud of that.
Play the accordion?
Yes, I do, but very few people know that. I did win, and I was doing it because my father loved the accordion, and he self-taught himself, but he bought an accordion and wanted to take lessons, and his mother told him he had to take it back because they needed the money, and he couldn't take lessons. So when he was old enough and on his own, in fact, I think it was right before he married my mom, he went out and bought an accordion, which I still own, and taught himself to play, never took any lessons. So I wanted to learn it so that I could make my dad proud. My dad was a working dad, as a lot of people in my generation went through, where the father went to work, made money, came home, and slept. So we didn't have a really close relationship. He was always good to me, and he always provided. But, I mean, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so even through the summers, I hardly got to do anything with my dad. And he was interested in stuff that I'm not. He was really into golfing. He was a championship golfer. And he was really into working on cars. And everybody in our whole family, cousins, nephews, everybody, came and had my dad fix their cars. So, and I wasn't into that either. So I didn't spend a lot of time with my dad until he retired. And then we formed a really close bond then. But I never thought, like my dad, he wasn't a father that was on Father's Knows Best or any of those good old TV shows in the past. So I always wanted to prove myself to him, and that was one thing. And when I won the award for accordion, he was pleased, but he didn't show it a lot, but I mean, he was pleased. But after I did that, there was nothing else to do except continue on, but I didn't want to continue on, so I put my accordion away, and I have both of them at my house. I don't think I played them in probably 25 or 30 years.
Do you think you could?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I could. I mean, I can still do the right hand like on the keyboard. Trouble with the left hand, it's all buttons on the accordion, not the keys, so I can't do the left hand.
If we were to ask you to come bring it to Friday night at Footlights,
I would not.
you would not?
No.
Would not?
No, I mean, it's just something that it's in my past and I'm very proud of it, but that's where it should stay.
Stay? Okay. I mean,
I don't think I'll ever be as good as I was in that. So.
You learn something new when you talk to people. I didn't know you ever played accordion.
Yep. And I mean, and I have a lot of nice honors from theater. I've been inducted into the Northern Indiana Excellence Theater Foundation's Hall of Fame. I'm at this Hall of Fame for Footlight. And I've gotten like a lot of nice recognition, a lot of nice awards. but I don't do it for that. I do it because I really, really enjoy doing it.
And that's what we should all be doing in life, right? So
Oh, I guess another big point in my life was I got to sing for the Pope
I had,
in 1976.
and that was with your.
The Chopin, well, in 73, I sang with them in Poland for a big triannual convention. It's called Polonia. And they have choruses from all over the world, but they're Polish choruses that sing in their native language and in Polish. So I actually was with the chorus, and I was their soloist, but I also performed with the chorus, the Chopin chorus in Gary. And then in 76, we were welcome to come back, but the chorus couldn't make it, the director and the accompanist couldn't go. So they called, or they didn't call, they I guess wrote and asked me to be there for the Western Hemisphere. And I agreed to it, and they supplied me with a really nice pianist that I got to meet on the plane to Poland. I had never met her before. And got to perform in Poland, but then I also did more concerts and ended up in Rome and sang for the Pope in 76. The strangest thing about all that was on 4th of July for the bicentennial, I was in Warsaw, Poland singing.
That's funny. That's quite funny. So I'm gonna skip a round. You ever regret anything?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I guess there's things that I regret that happened to me, but I put them behind me. Most of the things that happened to me that were bad, I guess, I've learned from. I was really sick for 3 years. I regret that I was sick, but there's nothing I could have done about it. But I've made the best of it. I regret having to lose my right leg under the knee, but I can still function. I don't want to wallow in any kind of self-pity. I am estranged from my only family relative, which is my sister and her 3 children. But I've made peace with that also. She is the one that basically doesn't want me in her life, and I've accepted that and gone on. But I told her, and I've told all of the nieces that I have, that the door is open. If they ever want to come to me, I'll be more than happy to welcome them back. But I had to deal with that, and it took me a while to get over that one. That was the hardest one for me to get over.
But like, I mean, do you regret any roles that you have taken on in theater, or like not? I mean, you went really dark really quickly.
Well,
I meant more like, do you regret not having kids or theater?
No, I don't regret having kids. If I was younger, I probably would have liked to have kids, but I'm not sure how good of a parent I'd be because I really enjoy my life, and I couldn't have this life if I had kids. I can be in as many shows as I want to be in. I can do whatever I want and whenever I want because the only person I have to atone to is my husband, Bill. And we do a lot of theater together, so we have good interests and we do stuff together. He doesn't like being on stage, however, but he doesn't mind doing the backstage stuff. But if I had children, I'd have to give a lot of that up. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it up because you have to raise a child. And I wouldn't be a parent that was just once in a while parent. I would want to be a full-time parent. I mean, when they were in school, I would have my free time, but if they weren't in school, I'd like to be home with them.
So you do the stay-at-home thing.
Right. So that's why I said I'm not sure if I regret not having children or if I regret, if I did have children, if I would regret giving up some of my life for that. So this, I think, is the lesser of the 2 evils.
But you still get to work with kids and
yeah, and
shows
I love
that
kids,
you choose.
Yeah, so.
What about taking roles? Any roles that you were sad about taking on or wished you would have taken?
There are roles that I would love to play that I haven't been able to play. A few of them that I did turn down because of problems with personalities. One part I never did play and I never will play now is Rooster and Annie. That was always one that I wanted to do. I would love to do anything in Sweeney Todd. There's only been one production around that I know of that I could have been able to be in, even in the chorus I would. But I was already directing a show at another theater at the same time that was being auditioned, so I didn't even audition for it. And it's a show that's not done very much, so it's one that I would like to do. I've really enjoyed, I can't think of any show that I was in that I did not enjoy what I was doing. There's been shows that I have been in that I wish certain things wouldn't have happened. They were never really to me, but you always have somebody in a cast once in a while that is either a diva or is a troublemaker or things like that. I very happily never had that problem when I've directed, but I have had that problem in casts. And that I regret that happened, but it didn't bother me as far as doing the show because it wasn't really affecting me, it was affecting other people in the show. So that's a shame that happens. I think there's, in theater and even in community theater, there's always some backbiting with certain groups. Somebody wants the lead, they didn't get the lead, so they get mad and they still stay with the show, but they cause problems. Or they were a couple at the beginning of rehearsals, but they broke up with each other, so now they hate each other and they're causing all this dysfunction in the cast. So that's the kind of stuff, and that happens in community theater. It could happen less if we were all getting paid and this was your job, so you'd have to suck it up. But we're not getting paid. So sometimes they'll walk out at the last minute, and it's like, okay, how do we fill this void? So, and you do what you have to do.
Why did you say yes to doing this interview with me, Bobby?
Because I like you. And I don't like doing this because I'm basically talking about myself. And I've been told, and it's a very nice compliment, that I'm an interesting person. I have a lot of different things that have happened to me in my life, but I don't think of myself in that way. I think that I've had a nice full life and I've really enjoyed everything I've done, but I don't feel that anybody would really care. I guess. And I'm happy though. I'm happy with my life. So I don't like talking about myself per se. I'm very, very happy with everything I've done. I'm very much at peace with myself, but I don't want to go on and on about it. But I did it because you asked me to. And if somebody that I didn't hardly know asked me, I probably would have declined.
Okay. What was your first date like with your current husband right now?
Oh, with Bill? It was very nice. It was very romantic. We met a day before. We just met, and I didn't even think that he probably didn't know that I was alive. I noticed him right away, and I was very taken by him. So it was a little bit of an infatuation on my part, not on his part. So the next day, we met again, and he was more interested in me by then. And I took him out to dinner at a nice restaurant, and we had Chateaubriand for two, and I ordered, and he sort of got freaked out because he never went to a gay bar until the day that I met him the first time. And the next day was the second day in a gay bar. And he knew that he was a homosexual, but he didn't know how to accept himself or accept the fact that he was one. And I knew that because a couple of years before we met, I had the same problem. I didn't have a high regard for a homosexual. I thought they were disgusting, horrible people that a lot of people do think of that way. And I was among them. But then when I realized they were from all different aspects of life and everything was normal about being gay. It wasn't abnormal and it wasn't quote unquote queer. It might be strange to heterosexuals, but it wasn't queer. It wasn't a derogatory thing. So we went out to dinner, and I actually held his hand above the table, which took him by surprise, but he got to be okay with it. And I never ever have lived, as they say, in the closet. I was open from as soon as I realized I was gay. I knew before I actually said I was gay or homosexual, I knew I was different, but I wasn't sure what that meant. But then when I did realize what it meant, I was open to my parents, I was open to every employer I've ever had, and sometimes I don't realize that some people are at first offended by it. But I like that a lot of times I had met a lot of people in theater that didn't know anybody that was a homosexual. And then they got to know me and they realized, oh, I like him. In fact, I had a couple straight guys come up and say, okay, I really like you and I really like your friend who was in theater with me. Does that make me a homosexual? I says, well, it depends on how much you like us. But I mean, if you just like us as people, that's all we want. That's, you know, if you look behind the stereotype or behind what you think a gay person should be, and just take it as a person. When Bill and I actually got married, we only had, I think, 6 out of 200 people that were gay at the reception. I mean, we had married couples, kids, all of our theater friends, and very few of them were gay. So the Unitarian priest that married us, and it wasn't legal or anything, but he even said an opening prayer for the dinner, and he said that he was quite amazed that there were so many heterosexual friends and relatives that were there, because he said he's performed many of these ceremonies and it's only gay people there. And I don't even think that way. I like people. I don't care if they're gay, if they're straight, if they're white, they're black, doesn't matter. If they're good people, then I like them. If they're bad people, I stay away from them.
Well, with what I have in my hand is your theater, part of your theater log. So I went and did some research on my part, and I looked up a few of your shows, and I listened to Emma's Child, which was, and then I realized which part you had, and I was like, that's a fitting part.
Yeah, it was, well, that was one of the hardest shows for me to do and stay in character, because to me it was very sad.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not want to be, I would never want to be the husband until the very end of the show, because he's very much against, the story is about a couple that want to have a baby. They can't have a baby, so they decide to adopt, and they have a surrogate mother that's pregnant, and she gives birth, and we're going to have this baby at home, but it's born with water on the brain, and I can never say the word hydrocephalic, I think. So,
That's about right.
And I don't want to have the baby because it's deformed. And my wife really takes to it and loves this child and comes every day to the hospital to be near it. And I'm getting more and more mad with my wife because I don't want this. I want a normal baby. And then at the very end of the show, I realize I would love this baby if I just gave it a chance. And by the time that I'm ready to accept it, it dies. And it's just, it really tore me up. And when I had to go on stage with this big blue teddy bear, like I'm going to accept this baby and take it home with me, and it's dead, it was so hard not to cry. Even though you know it was play and you've rehearsed this, but almost every night it was, and the director was real adamant, I don't want you to cry, because if you cry, the audience won't. He wants the audience to cry. And I do realize that's what makes it very emotional for people, because they're crying for you, not for the baby anymore.
I listened to it before I went to bed last night. And I sobbed. And then I watched do the patent leather shoes really, black patent leather shoes really reflect up. And that show has a meaning to you, right?
Well, it has, there's a lot of different meanings to it. I grew up in a Catholic school, and I grew up with all the stuff that's in that play. So that's something. My first lover that I was with died of cancer. And he died before we'd opened the show. And he was the one that basically made me do the show. I wasn't going to. Another person had played the priest, and he was in the rehearsals a week before. He got hired in a job which he had to work on weekends, so he had to drop out. The director asked me to step in, and I said no, because Dennis was on the way out. But he found out, and he loved this author, and he loved the stories, and he really, really wanted me to do the show. I had done cabaret earlier that summer at the Dunes, and he had came to see that. That was the last show that he actually came to see me in. And then when Black Patent Leather Shoes was the end of the season, and I was rehearsing, and then he did pass away about a week before we opened. And his funeral and his, I guess it is his funeral, his ceremony, and the burial was on our opening night. But it was in the afternoon in Niles, Michigan. So I let the director know that I would be there for opening night, but I didn't want anyone to talk to me, before going on. I said, after the show, you can all say you're sorry for me, but don't do it before. And we did, and it was very nice. And the very last song of the show is everybody singing a song called "Thank God I'll Never Be This Old Again." And I'm singing it as the priest facing the audience, and the whole wedding party, which is the other actors, were facing me. And I was fine until I saw them, and they were all bawling their eyes out. And that got me. So, I do have a tape of that night, and I have a tape of closing night. And that song is a lot different on both of them. You couldn't even understand what anybody was singing by the end of the song.
It was a sad song. Again, I tortured myself through watching both of those shows.
But if you think about it, it's nice because, the song is good. It shouldn't be a sad song except knowing that story. Because it's all these kids, and you see them from like second grade all the way through after high school and college. And they're saying, thank God we were never going to be that young again, because we learned stuff through our whole life. So it's a good song, except I will always cheer up a little bit whenever I hear it.
And you had told me about that. So, June is Pride Month.
Yes.
Which is a really interesting month. And I wanted to ask another question. There's two more questions that I have, and then we can finish this and we can be done with this.
Okay.
First question is, what would you say to a kid? What advice would you give to a kid who's coming out or is thinking about it?
Well, and that's not easy. It really depends on every individual. You always have the little fear that if you come out, some people that you really love and that really love you are not going to accept you, or not accept the fact that you're gay. My sister would have accepted me as who I am as long as I never talked about it and I stayed in the closet and let no one know that I was gay. I can't live that way. I can't live a lie. I never. In fact, that was one of the things that the first two people that I talked to when I came out was my mom and dad, because I never ever lied to them while they had their wits about them. I just have to say it that way because my mom had dementia, and to get her to be in a nursing home where she could be watched at 24 hours, I had to lie to her about that. But I never lied to them any other time. I was a smoker, a heavy smoker, and they were the first ones that knew I smoked. I never even told my friends that I smoked because I thought they wouldn't like me. But so I never lied to them, and they accepted it. My sister didn't, but they did accept it. My sister tried to get them not to accept it, but they told me, "You're still our son. You're still the boy we raised, and we know that you wouldn't do anything to harm that thought." Like, I was the first child in my whole family, all my cousins, all my uncles and aunts, first person to leave home before they were married. And that was worse than coming out and being gay. Because my mom was just afraid that I was going to leave home and get caught up in drug parties and this stuff. And I'm like, you know me. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to be on my own because they did have strict rules. And we were supposed to be in bed at 10 o'clock on school nights, even if you were out of school. If you're 30 years old, you're supposed to be home in bed by 10 o'clock. Well, I didn't want to do that, and mostly with being in theater and at an older age.
How do you do that?
Right, so I did move out when I was 20 years old. And that's sort of old to me, but nowadays, but back then it wasn't.
Oh.
So that bothered them even more than me. I mean, and I was gay when I moved out, and that didn't bother them that I was gay. It was more of a problem that I was moving out. But they were very supportive of me in everything I did. So I was lucky, but I know a lot of friends that when people are coming out easier now than it was back in the 70s or 80s when I came out. Because it's accepted by society, the gay life. I mean, Ellen helped a lot, Ellen DeGeneres, when she came out on her old TV show, and from then on, I mean, watching the Tonys the other night and having people kiss their spouses, if they were men or women, when they won, I thought, well, we've came a long way. And we still have a way to go, but it's not that bad. I mean, it's now probably as acceptable as being black in the 70s was. I mean, it just started being okay in the 70s where you didn't have to ride on the separate buses or drink out of separate water fountains. And we never had it that bad because people didn't know you were gay. But if you were gay and you were known to be gay, they wouldn't let you even, well, maybe in the late 80s, they would throw your glass away if you drank at their house because they were afraid they were going to catch AIDS. And not every gay person in the world has AIDS. And I think now it's known that, but back when that first started, that was the big stigma. So it's gone back and forth through a lot of problems, but I would tell them they have to really know the people they're going to come out to and realize if it's worth it or if it's not. I personally could not live a lie. So if they didn't accept it, I had to deal with that. Now, you have the person, whoever you are talking to, a young person or an older person, if they're going to come out, they have to realize, if I come out, I have to take everything, the good and the bad. And if you don't want to take the bad, if it should happen, then don't come out. I mean, I think everyone should come out, but I don't want to hurt their lives. So.
Well, okay, now I'm just going to wing it. Well, with that being said, I've had something burdening me for a while, and you know what the T stands for at the end of LGBT, right?
Yes.
Trans. I feel like I'm trapped in a female's body, and I'm a guy.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. I'm coming out to you. You're the first person outside of my family that I have told, and this is mainly the reason why I wanted to do this interview with you, because I wanted to be able to come out to somebody in the theater who I haven't told yet. I haven't told anybody here yet, and I thought it would be good to start with you by telling you. And I wanted to say I'm also gay because I.
Oh, okay. That's good. You can be transgender and not gay. I understand that completely.
The whole reason why this whole thing is I'm doing it will actually be what I'm doing is a series. It's a series. There's a few people who I have lined up, but you were the first one, Bobby, and listening to you and your story and how much you've gone through and what you've gone through, it inspires me. It makes me continue wanting to be a better person. It makes me continue wanting to be in the theater, on stage, singing, even if I must. And you don't know how much of a weight has been lifted by me being able to tell you this.
Well, and this is I don't know if I've been open about this. It wasn't my place to ask, but it was my place to imagine, I guess. Never talked to anybody else about it. I always figured, and I'm not good with ages anymore, and young people are a lot older than they were when I was a kid. But I thought, I'm not going to say anything to you. I imagined that if you weren't transgendered, you would be at some time. You would come out and do it. You dress. Almost everyone when you're ushering, I know that your grandmother's there, and they go, "Oh, is this your grandson?" And she has to change it, and I understand
you don't know
that.
how pleased I am. And when you say "sir," and I'm taking you up, it makes me feel good. This is the small things.
I always say I'm not good with pronouns.
Back to the age thing. on my application, this is a totally different thing that I'm recording now, but on my thing for the emails and how old you are, I said I was 13.
Oh,
That was
nice.
2 years ago.
Oh, so you're 15.
I'll be 15 next
Okay,
month.
see, you're supposed to tell me that. I asked everybody to tell
I
me.
didn't want to
if
make
they
it. I didn't want to make it a big deal.
Oh, no, that's okay.
And then one more thing before I shut off the camera. Can you do you mind just throwing up your fake leg? Just
Oh,
just lift it.
the real leg or the stump or just the actual leg?
I don't care either one. I want to show how much of a trooper you are and
Oh, yeah.
how much I adore you and find you fascinating. So there's your fake leg.
And you push a button and it pops off.
You make it sound so simple. So
And there's my stump.
this has been my coming out interview.
Am I coming out of my leg?
This has been my coming out interview with Mr. Komendera, who is a family friend and a great person in general.
Not a problem at all.
Don't want to drop your leg.
That's okay. It's pretty